welcome to another Garage Time with Goody. And what we're going to do today, we're going to be changing the thermostat in a 2004 3.2 liter engine Chrysler Crossfire. The very first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take this jack and jack the car up, and I'm going to put two jack stands underneath of it to hold it up, because jack stands can save your life. Don't argue with me about it. Okay, so I'm going to get... Now what you want to do to make it drain faster, before you loosen the drain or the petcock, you take the lid off of where you put in the fluid, and it should let it drain faster into that catch pan. Okay, I'm underneath the Crossfire right now, and usually underneath the Crossfire there is a plastic shield, and this one does not have the plastic shield. It goes all the way back and covers this up. As you can see, the plastic shield is not on here, and what it reveals is over here near the driver's side, up in this little hole here, that is the drain, also known as the petcock. So what you're going to want to do is to place a drain tub underneath, and you're going to want to let it drain all the way out. And that's what I'm going to do. Is usually there is a plastic plate that goes from here back, and there's 4 8mm screws. If you have that plate, you want to go ahead and take it off. On this particular car, it is missing that plastic plate, but here is access to the petcock. Up here, I want to use a regular screwdriver, and I'm going to slightly turn it, and it should start the antifreeze leaking down into the catch pan. And you just let it drain. Just let it drain until it's done. The next step you're going to want to do is right here, this shroud that says Crossfire. We're going to have to take it off so we can get access to the thermostat, because it's kind of underneath in the front where this housing is. If you look in the back of this shroud, here's the top of the shroud, and you'll see that there's these little metal connector tabs that just push up. But if you just go to the back and you feel under here and you pull up, just give it a little tug, it should come right off of there. And you might have to pull the front hoses off and this front hose off. It just pulls right off. So then you take the shield, the shroud off, and you lay it to the side. Once you lay that to the side, your engine should now look like this. And from the front of the car, if you see this hose right here, it goes across, it goes down here. This right here, this bolt, and the bolt on the other side, those are 2 bolts. Those are going to need to come off, and that is where the thermostat is. So right underneath that hose, that is the old thermostat housing and thermostat that's going to need to come off. The next step you want to do is to flush out your fluids. And to do that, you just take a regular water hose with a connector and set it in the overflow, and just keep pushing water through until it comes out clear. Just keep pushing water through until it comes out clear in the drop pan. Well, this could take a few minutes, but you want to get it as clear as possible, and that way it will take out all the sediments and all of the impurities that settled into the radiator or that broke down in the coolant. Remember, you want to replace your coolant about once every year or every 2 years at the most, because that coolant does break down. Okay, for this next part, you're going to need these special torque sockets. Sometimes they're called E-torques. The size I'm going to be using is an E10. And these two bolts, just like I showed you, here's how I'm going to get to them. I'm going underneath the belt right here, and then you go lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, of course. And just make sure you're underneath that belt, and just take a constant momentum in releasing that bolt there. Now, before I get this one all the way out, I'm going to go to the other side. The bolt on the right, you can have one single extension or use one what looks like about a 6-inch extension. I'm going underneath the radiator hose. I'm still going right above the belt, and I'm going to start that right coming off of there. Now, at this time, your fluid should have already been drained. You may get a very tiny bit of leakage seep out, but nothing major, because all your fluid should be in your drop pan. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and take out the left first. You know it's wiggling and about to come out, you can put your finger, you can just go ahead and get it out by thumb, turn it, and do not lose these bolts, guys. There it comes, and the first bolt is out. To put the other extension back on, which makes it a total of about 6 inches instead of 3, and I'm going to go ahead and keep working this bolt out until it's wiggling, and then I know I can take it out by hand, and that's what I'm going to do. And that bolt is out, and then I'm just going to pull a little bit and see what this looks like. You want to be careful and clear this belt and pull this back. This is what the old thermostat looks like right here. And you want to get this rubber O-ring off of here. I'm just going to use a flathead screwdriver, because this goes to the old thermostat. In fact, it went around right here. And you should have a new one on your new thermostat. So what we're going to do, since this thermostat is built in to the neck of this, we're just going to unloosen this hose from the thermostat, and it should loosen this clamp right up. You can move this back a little bit, and you can take a flathead screwdriver and just pry underneath it here a little bit, not too hard, and just go around it and push backwards, and that will release it from the hose. And then now your entire thermostat is off. So you're halfway done now. Congratulations. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a cloth shirt and I'm going to wipe and clean around the edges so that everything will be flush when I install the new thermostat and the rubber O-ring. Want to get this clean right here on the outer edges so that the O-ring will be flush. Before you put the new one in. Okay. Then you're going to take the new thermostat. You're going to put it over. What you want to do before you tighten this clamp down, you'll want to line this up with the hole here. And then you'll just gently push it in. And then by hand, you'll want to get the bolt started. Of course, it goes underneath the belt here. You see, I'm just going to get it started by hand. And I'm going to get the other side started a little more for the right over here. And that's the one I'm going to start with first because I have the left on a little more. And you want to be careful. You want to make sure that that rubber gasket does not come out of there because you want it to go in flush. You don't want to pinch that rubber gasket because that'll let the coolant leak out. So I'm not going to tighten it all the way yet. I'm just going to get it flush. And then I'm going to do the same with the other side. I'm going to take one of the extensions off. I'm going to have a 3-inch extension. I'm going to put it underneath that belt right there for the clearance. And I'm going to tighten it. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten it down. I'll put the torque specs in the channel description. And I'm going to tighten this one. That's on there good and tight. The last thing I want to do is tighten this clamp. And you want it flush and tight so that it's not going to leak. And it is on there. At this point, we're almost home. Want to tighten the petcock back up, and you'll turn it clockwise to the right. Don't overdo it. I'd say about 5 pounds, foot-pounds should do it. You don't want to break it. And then you should be ready to put the coolant back in. Okay, the next step is to take the jack stands out from the car, out from underneath of it, and then let the jack down, and then the car is going to be level.
You put a third one under there, didn't you?
I took it out. Now the next step is to put the antifreeze back in. Now I went ahead and got pre-mixed, pre-diluted antifreeze. That means I don't have to add any water to it. It's ready just to be poured in. And you want to get the kind that goes into this car, which even though it's a Chrysler Crossfire, it's more or less a Mercedes. So it takes a G05, and it says it takes about 1.5 gallons. I went ahead and bought 2 gallons. And as I'm adding this, I'm going to check for any leaks. You want to make sure you have a funnel like I'm using and pour it into the overflow, which then circulates it through the radiator and the rest of the system. So the places you want to check right off to see if there's any leaks is right here at the thermostat housing that you just put on, or underneath the car where the drain or the petcock is. And I don't see any leaks so far. Of course, we're going to start it up and check for leaks too before I put that 2nd gallon in. The next step you want to do is to let the car heat up until the point that the thermostat is going to open and it pulls the coolant into the system of the car. And then we can put the rest of the coolant in, and then we're going to burp the system. And I'll show you what that is. Finishing topping off the coolant. And you'll want to get it to the fill line. And let me just check on it. Almost there. Because what happens once your car heats up and the thermostat opens, it's going to suck the antifreeze down into the engine, into the water jackets. And you're going to need to add the rest of that coolant. And then what you do, you start the car. Okay, to explain what burping is, burping gets the air out of the system. Because once you put the coolant back in, air is going to get back in here. And once you warm the car up and while it's running, you press on the radiator hose that's connected to the thermostat, and then that will cause bubbles to come up through the overfill or the reservoir here. And as these bubbles come up, it pushes the air out of the system. And that's called burping or bleeding the system. And it's pretty important. Now on some of them, you do this with the hose, and some of them will actually have a valve that you turn, which this one doesn't, that you can let the air out. So there's 2 different ways of doing that, but it's important. So you can have efficient heat and cooling in your car. And that's all there is to it. Okay, the last step is to put the shroud back on. It's going to go over the intake, the breather right here. You kind of set it on top of it right here. You're going to make sure that these go over the covers on each side, like so. And you want to make sure this is over this breather hole. And then you push down on each side and forward. And make sure it's on over here. It's snapped on over here. And then it's back together. Then you're almost done. You can go ahead and close the lid to your car. What you need to do is to properly get rid of your old antifreeze, because it's poisonous and it can kill animals and people. So I'm going to put it into the new antifreeze jugs. Make sure you pour this to be able to get rid of it. Okay. Tighten this back up, and you can take this to AutoZone, your local auto parts store. They should recycle it for you. And that is how you change the thermostat in a Chrysler Crossfire 2004. It should work all the way up to 2008, but I can't guarantee you on that. So I hope you've enjoyed another Garage Time with Goody. If you do, smash that like button, subscribe to my channel, and until next time, be good to yourselves and each other. Bye bye.
Bye.
Look.